rapidly in high wind. Clear plans for evacuations from a farm site can keep everyone safe. We will hear from several experts about how to create an evacuation plan for all your employees to safely leave the property, and how to reduce the likelihood your houses and buildings will burn in a wildfire.
You need to pay attention to warnings and watches from the National Weather Service. So when you have a red flag warning, when you have a red flag watch, you're communicating that to your business and your employees. Hey, we're under red flag conditions. If you see something, say something. Be prepared that if we evacuate, remember, check our plan. I always see evacuation planning in 3 steps. So first is we talk about planning, and then preparation, and then implementation. How is that property going to receive fire? So you're looking at defensible space. You're looking at thinning vegetation within 100 feet, removing all vegetation with 30, and then we now have a 0 feet clearance. So you really want no vegetation next to your property, ideally. So first, that property is ready to receive fire because it's inevitable here in California, no matter where you live, your property will eventually receive fire. Second is ingress and egress. So you need to have 2 ways out of everything. 2 ways out of every room, 2 ways out of every property piece. If we need to utilize property somewhere else, coordinate with your neighbors. So that brings in the community planning piece. You need to have notifications and a meeting place. Ideally, set up a meeting place that everyone in your group knows about. Once that plan is created and you've prepared the property, the next thing you actually should be doing is practicing. So creating either an intentional practice, or even in my family, we do surprise practice. I'm like, oh, there's a fire. How are you gonna get out of this room? Where's our meeting place? But practicing that and communicating that plan consistently. And last but not least is reviewing that plan. So it might need to change. I would recommend having a small radio system. There's lots of small radios you can get, and having that as an internal communication piece is really important. I'm a big fan of 2 ways out. We actually experienced this in Sonoma County during Tubbs and Nuns, where people didn't have 2 ways out, and they were using whatever means, pretty desperate measures to escape, and luckily survived the fire front. I recommend at least 20-foot clearance. That doesn't mean removal completely, but utilizing weed whackers to keep grass low. What you want to do is allow a large truck to move in and out. So if fire departments or other public safety vehicles need to get in and out, they have room to do that without being impeded on. Remove any high-risk trees that could block your egress and ingress. Identifying hazard trees, removing them in front, reducing the fuel, and again, that is going to give you a lot more comfort if you're in an active fire front, that you won't be taking on a bunch of radiant heat as you're trying to leave.
The important thing to keep in mind about home destruction from wildfires is that the landowner itself and the homeowner can do a lot to reduce the probability of their home being lost in a fire. But 100 feet is important, and it's important for a number of reasons. One is it prevents the fire front from actually reaching the house. And it also provides defensible space for firefighters. They need to have some space. But the important thing that homeowners need to understand about fires in California is most of our homes don't burn because the fire front hits the house and ignites it. Most burn because of embers that are blown onto the house. And there's a good illustration of that down in Orange County. The coastal fire wasn't a big fire, only 200 acres. 20 homes were lost. And there was a very large clearance around that development. The winds basically carried the embers up and they landed on the homes. And the homeowners apparently had not done sufficient protection for their homes to keep them from igniting. For example, the types of eaves that you have around your house can greatly affect the probability of whether or not your house ignites. Now, it's possible to reduce that by changing the size of the mesh on the vents, but closed eaves we find consistently are associated with fewer home losses. The only characteristic that was consistently highly significantly related to whether or not a home burned was whether or not you had a tree that overhung the house. When you look at pictures after the fire, very often the tree itself never burned. So we don't believe that that tree enhanced the fire spread. But what we do believe it did is it dropped dead leaves on the roof. And those leaves basically were ignited by the embers.
Being prepared before there's a wildfire is very important. Having a well thought out evacuation plan can assure that all of your employees can leave the site and be safe. We'd like to acknowledge the agencies that provided the funding for these videos: the California Department of Food and Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. If you would like to learn more on these subjects, please visit our website.